Hello and welcome to 1-4. Today we're going to be talking about properties and mental math. And our goal is that you will be able to use number properties to compute problems mentally. So I thought this was absolutely a fantastic diagram to teach you the different properties. First off, we have the commutative property, this one right here. And they said to remember that you can think of a commute. Dad commutes to and from work by train. And the commutative property says that like 4 plus 5 equals 5 plus 4. They kind of commute. They go back and forth. It also says the commutative property of multiplication says 5 times 4 is the same as 4 times 5. So again, those numbers can be flip-flopped, and it doesn't matter the order that you compute them in. Then we have the identity property. The fingerprints revealed the thief's identity. And the identity property just says if I add 0 to any number, the answer is going to be that number. And same with multiplication, it'd be if I multiply any number by 1, it's going to be its identity. It's going to be itself. So I can multiply 326 by 1, and it's still going to be 326. And then we have the associative property of addition and multiplication. I do want to draw your attention here quickly. You can see that we have all of these properties of both addition and multiplication, because they have very similar, it just doesn't really matter, what order you put them in. But with subtraction and division, the order is very important. So next we have the associative property of addition and multiplication. And now what this one looks like is it's saying if we have a problem like 6 plus 7 plus 3, I could either add 7 plus 3 first. We'll go into more depth on the other page too. Or I could add 6 plus 7 first. And it's using grouping symbols, so we'd use our parentheses to say I'm going to do 7 plus 3 first, or I'm going to do 6 plus 7. It doesn't matter which two numbers we add together if we have three numbers. It doesn't matter which ones we add together first, because it's going to give us the same answer. Same for multiplication. And then lastly, the distributive property. Grandma distributes gifts to each grandchild. So like the problem before, if I have 5, parenthesis 4 plus 6. When there's a number next to a parenthesis, what that means is multiply. So what they're saying is we want to do 5 times the quantity, or after we find the sum of 4 plus 6. So we know that 4 plus 6 is 10. So if I'm going to do 5 times 10, I should get an answer of 50. But what the distributive property says, I'm going to distribute the 5 to the 4. So that would be 5 times 4, because we have this imaginary multiplication sign in here. And 5 times 4 is 20. And then we bring down whatever sign's in the middle. It could be a subtraction, could be a division, anything like that. And then we have to distribute the 5 to the 6. So 5 times 6 is 30. So we would get an answer of 50. Now, really, you use this mostly when you're starting to use variables, that's letters in math, because you can't just add 4 and 6 together like we could for this one. So it's kind of just getting us used to, getting us ready for when we have those variables in our math. So let's try some of these out. Here is the words of commutative property, and it with numbers showing what it is. Now here it's asking us to simplify this problem here. It says 12 plus 4 plus 18 plus 46. Okay, so what I'm first going to do is I'm going to say, okay, are there any problems that I can go together that will make a 10? And when I say 10, I don't mean necessarily 10. I mean, could I make a 20? Could I make a 30? Could I make a 40? Now, I noticed the 12 and the 18, so the 2 and the 8 make a 10. And then I could add on my 2 other 10s here, so I would get an answer of 30. So I'm going to use the commutative property to move my numbers around. So I'm going to put the 12 and the 18 next to each other, and then I'm going to do the 4 and the 46, and that actually works out because I noticed the 6 and the 4 are going to make a 10 as well. So then I'm going to, ready, catch this, I'm going to use the associative property to put grouping symbols in. So the associative property says I can add these 2 together and then add these 2 together. Okay, so we already talked about these 2 make 30. These 2 make 46 plus 4 is 50. Now I bring down my symbol, my operation sign here. And 30 plus 50 equals 80. Now, am I going to require you to show what property you're using? Yes. I am going to require you to show what property you're using because I think that's great practice on helping you remember your different properties. So let's go to another problem here. Simplify 5 times 2 times 12. Now, I'm looking at this and saying my first step I think I want to do is I want to multiply the 5 and the 2 together. Because multiplying things by 10 is easier than multiplying things by 2 or 5. So I'm going to multiply, I'm going to use the commutative property of multiplication to switch my numbers around. So I'm going to do 5 times 2 times 12. Then I'm going to use the associative, sorry, my C always have a hard time catching it, A-T-I-V-E, associative property to put grouping symbols to say I'm going to do 5 times 2 first, and then I'm going to multiply my 12 in. Okay, so then I can solve, I can do mental math here. I can do 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 times 12, I just have to put a 0 on the end of my 12, and I would get 120 for my answer. So this last little step is supposed to be the mental math part right here. But I'm showing it out so that you can see what's going on in my head. Right, one more slide. Now here we're talking about the distributive property. Now like I said, when you start working more with variables, and when I say variables I mean you'll start seeing X, you'll start seeing Y, and other letters in math. And that's trying to find the unknown. It's replacing the box that you've used in 2nd and 3rd grade math. And so when we use the distributive property, here's what we're doing. We're using it to multiply a number by a sum. Now that means adding. Multiply each number in the sum and then add it together. So if I have this problem, 6 times 10 plus 4, I do 6 times 10 and 6 times 4. So I just have to add 60 and 24. So it's supposed to make it a little bit easier to compute. So let me show you that with this right here. So 4 is going to stay the same. I'm going to break 23 into 20 plus 3. Okay, and just like for this one, I'm going to break 74 into 70 plus 4 to try to make my life a little easier on here. Okay, so when I'm using my distributive property, I'm going to distribute, remember our little saying, Grandma distributes gifts to each grandchild. So I'm going to distribute the 4 to the 20, and remember there's a multiplication sign in here that is implied. It's not there, but we just know when there's a number next to a parenthesis, it means multiply. So 4 times 20, and then I'm going to bring down my sign, plus. Now I need to distribute the 4 to the 3, so I'm going to do 4 times 3. Now I can solve this. 4 times 20, and that would give me 80, plus 4 times 3 is 12. Now the point of this is I can do 80 plus 12 really easy in my head. I know that's 92. Okay? So what this is trying to help with is that if I say, well, what's 4 times 20? That's 80. What's 4 times 3? That's 12. 80 plus 12. So it's trying to help you to be able to do this in your head. as opposed to having to do, 23 times 4, and then you have to say, okay, 4 times 3 is 12, and trying to do all that in your head. You can break 23 apart and hopefully do some mental math there. So let's try this next one. I'm going to do 8 parentheses, so that's times 70 plus 4. Okay, so if I distribute the 8 to the 70, that'd be like multiplying 8 and 70 together. And then I am going to bring down my sign. Then I need to distribute the 8 to the 4, so I'm going to be doing 8 times 4. Now, 8 times 7 is 56, then I just add on the 0. 560 plus 8 times 4 is 32. Now, this one's not so easy to do mental math with, but it would be easier to do it this way than doing it, if you didn't have paper. So 56, 560 plus 32 would give me a 2, then the 6 and the 3 would make a 9, and then the 592 would be that. So this is our friend the distributive property. I'll say it one more time. It will mostly be used when you're using variables, so we're just kind of getting our feet wet with it. So anyways, thank you for watching. I apologize, this one's a little bit longer too. Hopefully we'll have some shorter videos coming up, but I'm excited to work on this with you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.